Good people YouTube, I'm the Watch Idiot, and we actually haven't talked about Seiko for a while, which is very unusual for me, but Seiko is back because it's been just over 6 months since I got the SPB453, the new version of the ever popular SPB143, and over the past 6 months I've had a lot of thoughts about this, and still do. Especially because since I got the 453, I got the Omega Seamaster 300, my first ever rebuy that I absolutely love, and I wore my Pelagos FXD a bunch, and then I randomly started wearing my SPB451 Navigator Timer a whole bunch as of late. So in this video, I'm gonna go over my loves and my one dislike slash hate about this watch now that I'm wearing it with a newfound love for it after all those other watches. Oh, and then also I'll get into why I kept this watch over the Black Bay 41 Monochrome. Different yet similar watches. Also, you might have noticed that I upgraded the bracelet, and by the way, this isn't at all sponsored by Uncle Straps. I paid for it myself because I bought God knows how many things from him, and it's boosted the experience of the 453 a whole bunch, so I obviously wanted to share it with you guys. So if you do get anything from him, do let him know in the order notes when you do that, and let him know that I sent you. But anyways, let's just get on with it. So first up, and the biggest reason I even got this watch was because of the updated case and bracelet. And at a glance, the 453 and the 143 look pretty much exactly the same, minus the dial. But Seiko refined the design ever so slightly, and there was a chance that the changes would barely be noticeable. But for me, it's made all the difference. And if you want a really deep dive into all these differences comparing the two, check out my original review of the SPB453 from a few months ago. But anyways, the case is actually the same between the two, 40.1 millimeters, but the bezel, more importantly, is a touch smaller on the SPB453. It's 39.4 millimeters versus the 143's 40.1 millimeters. And that makes a visual difference, and the overall thickness is also down to 13.2 millimeters from 13.9 millimeters. And that makes a difference, but the more critical change in terms of thickness is the mid-case thickness. It went down from 6.5 millimeters to now 5.5 millimeters. And again, visual thickness is where everything is at. And the bracelet is still a 20 millimeter bracelet tapering down to 18 millimeters, but the links themselves are slightly thinner and shorter. So visually the bracelet looks less bulky, but the most important thing is that this reduced the weight quite a bit. And so alongside the refined watch head and this bracelet, it's lost quite a bit of weight overall. So the gray dial 143 is comfortable, but it weighs 175 grams for my 7.5 inch wrist, which is a lot for what's supposed to be a low-key 40 millimeter diver. Just for context, my Captain Willard, a 42 millimeter watch with a chunky case and a similar bracelet, it comes in at 179 grams. Then for Tudor, the bigger and more slab-sided Black Bay 41 Monochrome comes in at 154 grams, and the Black Bay 58, a watch that's closer to the use of the 143 in terms of size and proportions and wearability, that comes in at 138 grams. And yeah, no one would say that that's not a solid watch. So now, because of the updates, the 453 is now more than 10% lighter at 157 grams, and that makes for a much more pleasant wearing experience. And honestly, right now, it's the watch that I expected the 143 to be back when that was released and when I wore it. So basically, the 453 is now the under the radar 40 millimeter watch that's just easy to wear it all the time, and it's slimish and also relatively light and comfortable to, again, wear all the time. Yeah, I mean, I really don't know what more I could have wanted with this update. I mean, I think it's just fantastic. So my next love is the clean aesthetic, and yeah, it turns out that there actually aren't that many, or at least too many, purely black and white divers out there. I love a nice pop of color, but it's also nice just to have something super simple, super classic that'll just work. The SPB143 was the closest thing to the monochrome because of its gray dial, but a black dial diver is even more classic, and it was missing amongst all the different versions of this reinterpretation of Seiko's first ever diver, the 62 Mass, which was a pretty classic shape and design. So that simplicity and the classic shape would really lend well to a monochrome colorway. But there is also a full blue version, and also I think like a brownish or grayish dial, I think. But this monochrome version was the one for me because I just love how crisp and how contrasty the dial and the bezel are. Then of course the design overall is wonderful. The indices are simple, and yet the split rectangle at the 12 makes it more Seiko-y, and then the lovely hands are just awesome. I mean, they're simple in design, but they do add an extra level of visual interest in the classic Seiko way by having two facets, one polished and one brushed. I mean, I've said this before multiple times, this handset and the variations of this handset is my absolute favorite handset of pretty much all time. It just catches the light wonderfully, and it's just elegant and effective, yet angular. It's just, oh man, I mean, oh. Okay, the Black Bay 41 Monochrome checked off a bunch of these boxes with its zero color, zero gilt approach, but the reason why I sold it instead of the 453 is just because the 453 works better for me. Both watches are absolutely timeless and neither of them are boring, but the design of the case, especially the dial on the 453, just pulls at my heartstrings. I love Seiko, there's no doubt about that. But also the size and proportions that we just talked about for the 453 are absolutely spot on. I love this smaller 40mm frame, and then also the bracelet just being a little bit thinner, 20mm for that matter versus 21, all that good stuff. That said, if my collection looked a little bit different, I probably would have kept the Black Bay 41 Monochrome because that is such a fantastic watch. I do miss it. Additionally, it's nice to have the 62 mass design in the collection, and since I have the Black Bay 54, the Black Bay 41 Monochrome just ended up becoming a bit redundant because of the clean aesthetic and the very critical case and bracelet changes. This is now a super versatile watch. I would say it's the most versatile Prospex diver that I've ever owned, and that feels nice. Since I got the 453, I've worn the Seamaster 300, a very modern looking, bigger dive watch, a whole bunch, and then I also wore my FXD, which is a strap only titanium blue dial diver type thing, and then I wore the Raymond Wild Meal Seam, a silver time only watch, very elegant and thin, and I've been wearing the SPB451, a slim gray dial GMT, which is just absolutely fantastic. Anyway, all of these watches on their own were essentially palette cleansers for what I generally wear most of the time. But eventually, if I'm wearing all palette cleansers, all the palette cleansers become the norm. So going back to this black and white monochrome 40mm dive watch, this felt like a nice change of pace, and it was a palette cleanser, which is bizarre to think that such a simple classic design in a collection full of divers ends up being a palette cleanser. But it felt good. And yeah, just seeing it on my wrist and feeling it on my wrist, it just feels very comforting. Not in the, obviously it's very comfortable on the wrist, but comforting in terms of, yeah, I know what this is. This is just the way I like it. It's nice to see a dive watch on my wrist again. I feel like I've said that quite a few times. And actually, I think that this 453 is more versatile than the already very versatile Black Bay 54 because of the gilt dial on it. Just makes it, I feel, a little bit less sporty. I really think that the 453 could easily be someone's one watch forever, even against my favorite Marinemaster 200 GMT. And that's because of the simplicity of the case and the design. I think that this can be more easily dressed up if need be versus the Marinemaster 200 GMT. So now on to the slight dislike, which is the bracelet. And I say slight dislike instead of dislike or hate or anything like that, because the newly updated bracelet is a huge improvement from the last one on the 143. The links are shorter and thinner, which makes it look much better in my opinion. And like I said before, it makes it much lighter, and this is probably the single most important aspect of this new bracelet. And visually, the 20 to 18mm taper works with the watch and it works with me as well. And I wasn't necessarily pining for a new bracelet just because I like the way it looked. But I still always prefer a 4mm taper and a thinner construction just to make it even more wearable. Lo and behold, Uncle Straps released this Z199 bracelet, Z199 bracelet for this new generation just I think like last week or the week before, and I jumped on it because it just checked off so many boxes and I got it just in time for this video. A 20 to 16mm taper for a bracelet is the best, as I've said in so many videos before, and it works with this watch because the taper continues with the flow of the case sides, so it accentuates the more refined proportions and the looks of the case versus a chunkier bracelet. And so this is my first Z199 bracelet, and while it's a very, very good looking bracelet and I'm glad that I got it, had there been another choice, at the time of ordering, I most likely would have skipped this for whatever that other option was, because I'm not really a huge fan of Jubilees on Seikos, and the Z199 seems Jubilee-esque, maybe a bit too much for me, at least before I got to wear it. In real life, it doesn't feel like a Jubilee almost at all, because the links are flat, and more obviously, it's fully brushed, and that makes all the difference. I love a fully brushed bracelet. And I think the overall look and feel of this bracelet matches the look and feel of the 453 very, very nicely, because the 453 is a slightly kind of dressed up tool watch, still a tool watch though, and this bracelet is also a slightly dressed up version of a tool bracelet. It's fully brushed. It feels good, solid, can't complain. And the best part of this new bracelet is that it's even lighter. The stock bracelet with the 453 was a big improvement. It went to 157 grams, but this bracelet makes it nearly 20 grams lighter, 138 grams instead of 157. So even more perfect in terms of weight. So yeah, there you have it. Let me know what you think about the new 453 and what you think, would you get it? And also, would you get this bracelet? Let me know down in the comments. And until the next video, good day.